Not every trade tree video has to feature 14 teams and 76 players. Sometimes it can just be a real simple deal that's actually not that simple. One day we'll probably do the entire trade tree for Roberto Luongo, where he was with the Islanders, who remembers that? And then he goes to the Panthers, then the Canucks, and then back to the Panthers. We could do the whole thing. But today I want to focus on the trade tree for Roberto Luongo getting traded from the Vancouver Canucks back to the Florida Panthers. And that trade tree looks like so. See, it's not exactly very long. Shouldn't even be this wide. The trade tree is essentially Roberto Luongo getting traded straight up for Jacob Markstrom, except there's a couple small pieces in there. Steven Anthony was a 7th round pick of the Vancouver Canucks. He played in the ECHL and then the University of Windsor. Sean Matthias had a much better career than that. He had 7 points in 18 games for the remainder of the 2013-14 season with the Canucks. Then he had 27 points, 18 of which were goals though, in a 78-game season in 2014-15 with the Canucks, and also 2 points in a 6-game playoff run. And then he decided, I'm going to sign with the very bad Toronto Maple Leafs and get traded again. And so he did. But that's a footnote. The meat of the trade is Luongo and Markstrom. Luongo's tenure in Vancouver was strange. Successful for sure, but strange. He was the starter for a really long time. The Vancouver Canucks had lots of success, a pair of President's trophies, a trip to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, but even in that trip to the Stanley Cup Final, oh, here's Corey Schneider getting a couple starts in. Corey Schneider is traded and that saga sort of goes away. But then Luongo's play slips a bit and then he gets it back, but all of a sudden he's not getting nearly as many starts. Eddie Lack's in there. He straight up says into a microphone that his contract sucks.
My contract sucks?
And yeah, it must have, because he was still one of the better goalies in the NHL when he was dealt back to the Panthers and the Canucks still had to retain. I don't think we've talked about salary retention in any of the trade trees that I've done so far, but the Canucks had to retain basically about $800,000 of Luongo's contract forever and ever, amen. Now, that's not great by any means, but 800 grand, if you can't prepare for that on a year in, year out basis, that's like a league minimum player almost. You should be able to prepare. For the Canucks, if you really want to make that trade, and if Luongo really wants to make that trade, you do it. There's always the threat of cap recapture, but we'll get to that later. Luongo's second stint with the Florida Panthers, I thought was a couple of years. I don't know where I've been. In my head, he's a Vancouver Canuck. He had that weird little bit at the beginning of his career where he was with the Islanders, then he spent a long time with the Panthers, went to the Canucks, and then maybe played a couple seasons at the end of his career with the Panthers. Nope, that guy played 5 full seasons with the Panthers after that 2014 deal, and 255 games. And thanks to Hockey Reference, I know that 247 of those 255 games were starts. A 122 87 and 32 record and a 918 save percentage over that time. Well, actually it was 917.9, but come on, round up. It's how I got through high school. And you might be saying to yourself, well, Steve, you fell off a bit there at the end. Are you sure those aren't his stats from like all his games with the Panthers ever? Nope. Just after the Canucks trade. Dude, this guy was a great goalie for a long time. He was 4th in Vezina voting in the 2015-16 season. But here might be the problem with the Florida Panthers. Here's a question for you. What did Roberto Luongo have more of? Playoff games as a member of the Florida Panthers, or assists? Luongo had 6 assists with the Panthers after his trade away from the Canucks. He had 6 playoff games played with the Panthers his entire time as a Panther, before and after the Canucks. That is not an indictment of Roberto Luongo. That is a huge indictment of the Florida Panthers, and I've hammered this before. Luongo is going to laugh his way into the Hockey Hall of Fame, and the Panthers did nothing with his time as a Panther. Even at a .934 save percentage in the 6 playoff games he did have as a member of the Panthers. What was he supposed to do? Chip in on the 2nd and 3rd line? Muck it up in the corners? I don't know how Canucks fans necessarily feel about this deal, but the unfair thing that I always say is whatever team has the most success, comes closest to their goal, which is the Stanley Cup, wins the trade. The Panthers didn't win this trade. You could say, well, since the trade happened, Luongo had better seasons than Markstrom. Look at his save percentage, look at this. They didn't do anything. Well, they won their division, and then what? And then there's Markstrom's career. He sort of took a while to come into his own. He's not as young as you think, a bit of a late bloomer in terms of what was expected of him. 229 games played as a Vancouver Canuck, a record of 99, 93, and 27, not awesome, and 913, which is good. But like, you gotta go up a bit. Good. It's good. It wasn't really until this season that we're still currently in that he really broke out. And I mean broke out. Record of 23, 16, and 4, a 918 save percentage. All the more impressive considering he had some injury troubles this season, and the Canucks went 13, 11, and 2 when he was out of the lineup. Let's pretend this 2014 playoff thing never existed. With Markstrom in the lineup, the Vancouver Canucks were on a 95-point pace. Without him, 88. The injuries might have hurt his case, but there was lots of talk throughout the season of, should Markstrom be nominated for the Vezina? Should he be nominated for the Hart? So, in terms of who did what in this trade, it sort of depends where you land. Since the trade, Roberto Luongo has arguably, actually pretty convincingly, been the better goalie, up until this season, in which Luongo was retired and Markstrom was elite. Really, this trade tree is still going, because Markstrom could stay a Vancouver Canuck, have an excellent career, he could get traded, they could get pieces for him. There's no limits. And Thatcher Demko, Mikey DiPietro, the Vancouver Canucks have support on the way. Really, for Markstrom to even have done this well is a huge win for the Canucks, because this was kind of a cap move first and foremost. Which brings us to the cap recapture that is now biting them. Because Roberto Luongo retired and he had one of those ridiculous backdiving contracts that is now illegal, and you can see why, the Vancouver Canucks are being punished just over $3 million against the cap this season and for the next 2, which ironically could make it a little bit more difficult to re-sign, oh, I don't know, Jacob Markstrom. All for a guy who hasn't even played for the team in over half a decade. And because of that, whatever Markstrom ends up re-signing in Vancouver for, hopefully, you gotta like tack on $3 million. And you can see why, for a trade that actually has so few moving pieces, why it's kind of complicated. Canucks fans, I know it's a hot button topic. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. What do you think of this deal? Just the one from 2014. And while you're at it, what are some of your favorite Luongo memories? Panthers fans, I want to hear from you too. And hey, maybe they never go out and get Reimer in 2016 because they have Markstrom. Maybe they don't have to go out and get Bobrovsky and, well, I don't even need to tell you, I'm sure. So that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. We might have to do another Luongo tree.